So I'm going to talk about investing in product and user experience, not interface, focused companies, why you should do it and how you should do it. I'm going to talk a little bit more about why you should do it, because I think in order to do something well, in order to know how to do something, you should first know why you're doing
How
it.
do I get it?
I'm Sitar. I'm American. I live in the UK. I'm 36 today. It's my birthday.
Happy birthday!
I've been a VC for 10 years actually. So I started out pretty young in the industry, and I was previously with Dowdy Henson Technology Ventures, where I led the A round in SoundCloud. At the time, it was quite a small company. Now it's one of the leading music platforms in the world. And 4 years ago, with two other partners, I started Connect Ventures. So Connect Ventures is a London-based seed fund. We invest across Europe. We invest 300,000 to £1 million initially into each company. We've made 23 investments so far, 19 of which are active. We just closed our second fund last week. It's been a really good few weeks. So we just closed our second fund, which is roughly double the size of the first fund. So that was the first close. We'll probably do a second close in Q1. So if you're interested in investing in our fund, let me know. And those are some of our companies on the right side. So a little bit more about Connect. We're a highly focused seed fund. So we make 7 or 8 investments a year, which I think is roughly the number of investments Dave makes in a day. We like, roughly, maybe in a week. We like to lead deals. We're oftentimes the first investor, and occasionally we're the only investor, and we're really comfortable with that. There are 3 things we look for before we even consider an investment. The first is really strong founder market fit, so founders that really understand the market they're building for, mission-led founders, and a focus on product and user experience from the beginning. The first 2, a lot of people talk about, and you can read a lot about it online. The third, not as many VCs focus on, and that's what I'm going to focus on in my talk. So slide is slightly out of order. Before we talk about user experience, you have to know what user experience is, right? And people oftentimes will confuse user interface with user experience. They'll confuse design-led companies with user experience-led companies. User experience is quite a comprehensive idea, right? It is every point of interaction a user has with your company, your product, and your service. So that includes everything from the product to customer service, even the marketing, even your marketing. For purposes of this talk, I'm going to focus a lot on the digital product experience. And that's because at the stage that we invest in, that's the focus of the company. So a lot of times customer service and other aspects of the company follow product, but product is the first thing they do, and it's usually what they do for the majority of the first 12 to 18 months that we're working with the company. So why do we focus on product and user experience so much? What we found is every company, no matter what you do, whether you're a software as a service, whether you're a marketplace, whether you're building a network, whether you're building an e-commerce company, mobile e-commerce company, a payments company, no matter what you do, you have to build a product. You have to build a digital product if you're a tech company, and that product has a user experience. And the reason we focus on this so much is because product is oftentimes your users first, and sometimes, actually usually, your primary interaction point with customers, right? So product is what your customers know about you. As far as they're concerned, your company is the product. And if they need to, it's also your customer service. But that's what the company is. And so if you really focus on delivering an amazing user experience, our thesis is everything about the company, and what we mean everything, we mean its KPIs, its metrics, its profitability, the way it scales, everything is better than if you don't. That's our thesis, which is why we focus on it so much. But why do we focus on it so early? The reason we focus on it at seed stage is because companies have a DNA. If you don't care very deeply about user experience from the beginning, you're probably never going to. Companies' DNAs come a lot from the founders. The founders set the culture, they set the vision, they also set what you do day to day, what you care about. And if they don't care about user experience, trying to retrofit that kind of focus later on fails. It's really asking you to do some genetic engineering, which is more successful actually in science than it is in companies. So I wouldn't recommend it. If you if you have our thesis, if you believe that user experience leads to better companies, then you really have to look for it from day one. And so that's why we focus on it so much. So back to the business side of it. Why does it make business sense to focus on user experience? To make the case, I'm going to focus on one of our portfolio companies. It's a company called Typeform. Typeform makes forms and surveys. These are forms and surveys. These are very, very ugly forms and surveys. These are not mobile friendly, they're not touchscreen friendly, they're not particularly user friendly. There is nothing friendly about these. There's nothing nice about these. These are the forms and surveys that existed before Typeform existed. And the founders were two designers that both ran agencies, and they found that they had to make forms and surveys a lot. And when they did, one of the things you do is you say, okay, what is the current state of the art? And this is what they found. What they found is an entire section of the web that was stuck in 1995, right? The rest of web design had moved forward quite a bit, forms and surveys hadn't. So this is a Typeform. It's visual, it's user-friendly, it's mobile-friendly, it's touchscreen friendly, it's human, right? A form or a survey is what? It's a way to get information from someone. You're asking someone a question. This is a very rude way of asking a question. It's a very nice way of asking a question. That sounds very fluffy, but the business result is this. The completion rate for Typeforms is 4 times that of the industry average. So if you're a company and you're trying to collect information through forms and surveys, you will get 4 times this information from a Typeform than you will from a regular form. That's the business case. And when you think about your metrics and KPIs, what do you want, right? You want your product to be really successful. You want your product to help your customers be successful. Typeform helps its customers be more successful than SurveyMonkey does and than any other form company does. But it goes further than that. People don't just like it because it leads to better completion rates. They actually genuinely like the surveys. They like the surveys. People who take the forms really like the surveys. For every 89 Typeforms that are created, 1 person signs up. And there's a direct correlation, right? Every single time this happens, right? So they have an extremely viral growth loop. And it's more than that. People like to tweet about how much they like Typeforms, right? Today I learned about Typeform, holy shit. It's really hard to get people excited about stuff, and these people are excited about software that builds surveys, which is a really unsexy thing to be excited about. But they're very excited, and if you go to Typeform's Twitter account and you go to their wall of love, you'll see hundreds and hundreds of tweets like this. So why does that make business sense? These users are engaged. They're promoting your product for you for free to their network, right? They're pushing your product. That's what virality is. Virality isn't something you design into a product that you hit share and you force people to do it. Virality is people telling each other a product that's good. That's the basics of virality, right? And having virality in a B2B SaaS product is a pretty hard thing to achieve. Typeforms never spent a penny on marketing. Never. They get thousands of signups a day. It's a purely viral B2B SaaS product. So you think about building a business, what do you want, right? You want more signups, more conversions, you want highly engaged user base, you want it to be viral because it lowers your acquisition costs, you want a really strong brand so that you have customer loyalty, and of course you want revenue and profit. And you don't want churn, you don't want a really high cost base, you don't want a lot of customer complaints. Focusing on user experience allows you to achieve all of these at a lower cost than if you didn't. Right? And you can see it, I could go through other examples in our portfolio. We have other, both consumer and SaaS companies that grow in a viral loop. They have much higher conversion rates than competing products. They have a much more higher engaged user base. Their daily use is higher than other companies' daily use. And it has knock-on effects on the business in terms of revenue, lower churn, lower cost. Sometimes people ask me, why is it less costly to build a great UX? If your product is confusing, people call you. They call you because they don't understand how to use your product. They don't use the product, which means you have more churn. They don't sign up for your product, which means you have to spend more money to get the same number of customers than you would if you actually had a product that worked really well and was easy to use and understand. right? So focusing on UX has really, really strong business benefits. And for us as an investor, what we really like is I give one company 500,000, I give another company 500,000. My belief is the company that focuses on user experience makes far better use of that 500,000 than the company that doesn't. That in 12 months, if they worked on the same product and this one focused on user experience and this one didn't, this one will be a much, much stronger company and far more investable than the other. We do it not because, for reasons like we like design. We do it because we think it makes business sense too. And Typeform, by the way, we invested in June 2014. We led a €1 million seed round. It was their second seed round. Their first one is 350K. A year later, in the summer of this year, 2015, Index led a $15 million Series A in the company. And in 1 year, they went from $10,000 a month to over $150,000 a month in revenue. Not a penny of marketing, and they still had money in the bank from the money we'd given them. I can tell you a lot about other companies that did not have great economics like that. So one of the things to be aware of, right? One of the things we're supposed to talk about is some of the pitfalls of doing this. It's not magic. A lot of times people think, great, you have a great product, great user experience, it's growing like crazy, done. Get a lot of money, done. You still have to build a company, right? You still have to build marketing, distribution, you still have to think about your pricing strategy. Typeform, when we invested, and actually kind of still to this date, they have one price, it's $29 a month. So when Apple uses it, which they do, and Product Hunt uses it, which they do, and when you use it, which I hope you do, you all pay the same price, which makes no sense. We know that. Pricing strategy is something they're working on now. So that you still have to work on all the other aspects of the business. The point is not that focusing on product and UX is a magic wand. It doesn't solve everything. There's just two things. One, it makes all the KPIs in your company better. And two, if you're going to go to the effort of building all of the other functions in a company, you should at least do it for a product that people genuinely like to use. Because what's the point of doing it for a product people hate? So, how, right? This is what I'm supposed to be talking about, I guess, mostly, right? The instructive part. I don't really know how to teach people to be investors, but if you're gonna focus on user experience, I think there's a few kind of basic things to do. So first, learn about user experience. There's a lot of good books out there. There's a lot of good just material online. But it is a discipline, and it's a discipline you have to be skilled at, but you don't need to be an expert in order to be an investor. You just have to think about it and be aware of it. In your own life, daily, I'm sure you have good and bad digital experiences. Think about why you have a good digital experience and why you have a bad experience. Why was a bad experience bad? How could it be better? Just go through the thought process. It's a good intellectual exercise to do. And every time you use a new product, think about whether or not it's a good experience or not. It takes a little time because you're probably using the product because you have a need and you want to satisfy that need. But if you take just a little bit of time and a little bit of thought in between and just put yourself out of, I need to get this thing done, and just think about it as a product and evaluate it, you'll start building that user experience expertise. When meeting with a company, any company, before you meet with them, use the product. Try out the prototype. If they don't have a prototype, I guess try out the wireframe, but a product-focused team should be able to build a product, should be able to build a prototype, and ideally should be able to build the product itself. If they can't do either one of those, they're probably not that focused on product. But try it out. Check out the user experience. Great user experience focuses on providing value to the user, not on extracting value for the company. One thing I always like to look at whenever I try out a new product is the sign-up and onboarding flow. Almost every company, every product has a sign-up flow. And you learn a lot about what a company values when you think about where and when they ask you to sign up and how they onboard new users. So for example, I oftentimes will try out mobile marketplaces, and the first thing they ask you to do is sign up before you've seen anything. And I always wonder what the value of that sign up is. You have no idea if I'm interested in your product or not, because I have yet to see whether your marketplace has any value to me. So your sign up is effectively worthless. And I think the companies who do that just think about getting email addresses. They don't ever think about whether that email address is in any way valuable. I think it's not, because it's wholly unqualified. If you had instead waited till I checked out the marketplace, perhaps even clicked on an item and tried to check out the price, I would be a far more qualified sign-up. I would be a far more qualified and engaged user, right? So think about how they think about sign-up and onboarding is a really good test for me. During the meeting, start with the product, not the presentation. Usually throws teams off because they're very used to pitching VCs and they're used to walking through a presentation. What we like to do is start with the product and start asking them questions based on when we used the product earlier. Why did you prioritize this feature? This feature, does anyone use it? What is your product roadmap? How did you come up with that product roadmap? Why did you have these features first, these features later? And what you're looking for is how much do they think about the user in their design process? Instead of coming to the team, what are you looking for in the team? There's the practical bit, right? You can look for a founding team that includes a user experience or interaction designer, a team that includes a product manager or product designer. But oftentimes teams don't have that. And some of the teams we've backed that are great at user experience didn't have that. But what they had was they had empathy. And that's what really great product design is, right? It's a lot of empathy for the user. A good designer, a good product team puts the user at the center of their design process and thinks about the context that the user is going to be using the product in, what the frustrations of that user may be, what the problems might be, how much can they solve right away, how much can they solve later. It's about empathy. And just interacting with founders, asking them about their design process, asking them about how they think about things, you can learn a lot about whether or not they have empathy for their users. I think oftentimes I use a product and I just think this company must hate me because it's such a fucking terrible experience. And how can you possibly like your users and give them that kind of experience? I used to think that about Microsoft for a very, very long time, that they just hate their users because they rarely had a product that was in any way a pleasure to use, right? And I think it was just a lack of empathy. And then one of the other pitfalls is this magical thinking actually applies to the founders quite a bit. Oftentimes, very product-focused founders think product is the solution to everything. User experience is the solution to everything. As long as we design a great product and a great user experience, we don't have to spend any money on marketing. We don't have to spend any thought on distribution. One of the things that I find odd is a lot of the teams that we back, for them, Apple is sort of their paragon of a company. And they always say it's because Apple designed great products. They really think about user experience. Apple's also one of the best marketing companies that's ever existed. And I don't know how you can say that you detest marketing, but your hero company is one that's actually better at it than pretty much anyone else. So yeah, there's a lot of coaching and influencing that's needed. That's part of the job. I still think it's better to start with product-focused founders and just work with them on it. And then finally, not all companies gain enough of an advantage from user experience. So there's a couple of categories which we found out the hard way by investing, basically, that they just don't benefit enough from user experience. And a lot of those ones are where cash is actually more valuable than the product and the user experience. And so one of the areas that we didn't invest in but has been kind of a battlefield in the US and Western Europe is cleaning services. There's been a lot of cleaning services marketplaces. And the guys that won were the ones that just raised more money, right? Because it's a marketplace. It's a bit of a zero-sum game. You need more customers than anyone else does. And so the more you can acquire, the faster, the better. The more you're going to dominate, and the less likely VCs are going to want to invest in your company, no matter how elegant and amazing the experience is. Because in the end, if you don't have customers, you don't have a business. So there's a couple of areas where, and we've decided that it's not going to be relevant for us as a fund. So we won't be investing in it. And then finally, there's, this thinking about product and UX, this thesis about it really applies to mature technologies. So internet and mobile companies, right? It's a very mature area when it comes to technology development. But other areas, so it's like biohacking, virtual reality, autonomous vehicles, cryptocurrencies, they're quite nascent. And so a lot of the building that's going on now is more input building, component building, and infrastructure building. And so the front end and user experience matters less for now, but might matter more in the future. That's it. And I guess I've one more minute, so I might say one last thing. Yeah, is that okay? Cool. Which is that why do we do this, right? So we do it because we think it makes good economic sense to. We think our fund is going to return more money than other seed funds because we've had this filter and this focus, and it allows us to choose companies that other funds won't choose, and that's pretty much the job, right, of a VC. But the other reason to do it is because it, in its own little way, makes the world better. It just sucks to deal with crappy products all the time, right? So the more that you can encourage good product development and good user experiences, the more you, I think, bring a little bit less shittiness into people's lives and a little bit more happiness into people's lives, and that's a good thing. So that's all.